You know, they say if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all.
If you can't say something nice, don't say nothing at all.
Nothing nice to say, but Aldo nice.
I ain't got nothing, I ain't got nothing, I ain't got nothing nice to say. I ain't got nothing nice to say. Oh, I ain't got nothing, I ain't got nothing, I ain't got nothing nice to say. I ain't got nothing nice to say.
So I won't say nothing at all.
I ain't nothing nice. You hear me?
I said, whoa, welcome to the Best Friend Weekend Podcast. It's your man Aldo Nice, and I am joined by two of our former guests and habitual. Can I say habitual? Or rotational? What's the word I'm looking for? Occasional, seasonal.
Say habitual sounds like we drink. I mean, we do, but it sounds like we drink a lot. My habitual guests.
So guests that I have on a revolving basis when we have this one particular conversation that we like to have amongst the three of us. And, you know, eventually we may open this up to other folks. But right now, I'm joined by my colleagues, Just Devaughn from the In My Humble Opinion podcast.
Yeah, Just Devaughn. In my humble opinion. You said it all. That works. That works.
And my guy, Duff from, or Dr. Duff, soon to be, from the Houston area alliance of black men trying to make a difference if they mixed. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's about it. Summed it up.
I summed it up. If they mix, yeah, I guess. So yeah, we wanted to get back. We had a little feedback, from my midweek drop last week. We were getting a couple of questions and a couple of things that we're very interested in. Then we started talking about, hey, we were supposed to do a woke part 2 for a long time. If you guys remember, the original woke was dropped on January 11th. So that was, you know, right at around a little bit over 6 months ago that we were able to get together and have that talk. So, you know, I wanted to revisit some of those topics. I think we left some things on the table that we wanted to talk about, just that idea of wokeness and more specifically just the state of the black culture, man, the state of the union, if you will, that I think that this round table or square table is very particularly, we're the right people to talk about that. So anyway, one of the things that we talked about the last time was the continuum of wokeness. And I know that got a lot of feedback. And we went, and if you guys remember, we talked about a scale. 100-point scale of wokeness where
that was right.
0 would be a Tom,
yeah,
a Thomas, if you will. I won't use the Thomas sound effect, but a Thomas, if you will. And 100% would be a very Hotepian individual who was out of pocket. And we settled upon something that was kind of the standard that we thought that a black American should take. And we said 50 to 80%. That 50 to 80% was the rule. But since then, I just wanted to revisit it on this podcast and in front of both of you guys and in front of God and Country that Rumble Williams hit us up and said that, and I haven't told you guys this yet, that it has to be 51 to 80%.
I'm with him. I'm with him on that. Because I'm definitely with him on that. Because that 51, that little bit of extra, because the 50... Yeah, you're right. I see what he's saying. 51 to 80%.
Yeah.
I might go as far as saying 51 to 78%. Like, I feel like you start to get up in the 80s.
That threshold.
Yeah, you're reaching the threshold.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 50%, he said, obviously, for on the fence. If you're on the fence, then there's too much anecdotal evidence. There's too much video. There's too much tweets going out by the leader of the free world. There's too many things happening for you to be on the fence about where we stand as a people.
He is the leader of the free world. That shit is crazy.
Yes, it's crazy to say.
It's crazy to me.
And so then at 50, you can still go back.
Yeah, you can still go back.
You can still dismiss that evidence. You can dismiss what the leader of the free world is saying. Right.
Yeah.
That's so like we can't believe that he would talk about, either women of color or whole black ass cities, right? Like
black ass. He's been talking about black ass countries.
He's been talking about shithole countries.
Took a shot at Al Sharpton the other day, and Al Sharpton posted a selfie. He was like, "Take care of your city." Like I'm like, duh.
Right.
My man was just going down the escalator, taking a selfie, said, "I'm gonna stop by Baltimore," and he's like, he just sees it as an attack.
Yeah.
Like,
and so being at 50 means that you can then dismiss that, well, he didn't say black people.
Yeah.
Or being at 50 can say, well, you know, there wasn't anything racial about it because he didn't mention race. And so Rumble's absolutely correct. 51%. You got to cross that threshold.
You got to be on this side. And I mean, maybe we can revisit. Maybe it don't have to go 80. Maybe if you get closer to 80, then you may be doing a little tripping. But I feel like there's spikes in my blackness.
Yeah.
I feel like there's daily, weekly, monthly spikes in my blackness where sometimes I'm get along and do everything else, and sometimes I'm going to get a tattoo that says Black Lives Matter on my arm, right?
Which I just noticed is dope.
Oh, you never noticed this thing? Oh, this little thing?
Yeah, no,
I mean, so sometimes, I was at a good 94% that day.
94% that day?
I mean, evidently. Like
what
that.
prompted that? What was the
Strangely enough to say, the idea that was going on, and it's one of these things that I think a lot of people would can relate with. That you can get tattoos at certain places. Like when you're young, you get a tattoo, you get it on your arm, right? You get it on your chest, you get it on your leg. You get tattoos in places that are not visible because there's a certain connotation about, oh, you got a job, you can't have a tattoo like that. So I guess when I realized that I have a job, that it doesn't really matter that much, like in that sense, as far as kind of like that I can still do my job effectively because 9 times out of 10 I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt if I need to anyway. Then I went below the elbow. But the Black Lives Matter, the prompting of that was it was more so, I think I was in a place where I thought, I don't want anybody to be confused about where I stand. Okay. And I think sometimes at my job, and I don't want to speak to everybody because everybody can't do this at their job, and I don't want this to be an impetus for some young people to get out there and listen to this and say, man, I'm going to get Mandela tatted on my neck. Like you can't, like every situation isn't that. But I do work with a lot of people who have diverse views. And sometimes I'll make a joke, and I can speak to this specific example. I was teaching a class one day and they said something, I was teaching about computer science. And I got on stage and I said, and I was talking about something and I said, Arkansas is the first state to have computer science standards as a state mandated thing for kids to learn. And the people were like, okay, cool. And I was like, so it looks like Crooked Hillary did something right. And I said it like that as a joke, but it was kind of a feeler, right?
Yeah.
Right.
You know where I stand. And I'm like, I just was saying it as a joke, whatever. People were coming up to me afterwards like, ha ha ha, that Crooked Hillary, right? Like they thought that they were like, they
didn't catch it at all.
Yeah, so they thought it was like, he's Ben Carson, he's one of us, right?
Right.
So I think sometimes I was feeling that way just at the time. I was like, look, I don't want nobody to be confused. Like next time I make that joke, I'll shake your hand with my hand that got Black Lives Matter tatted.
Oh, that'd be super good.
So you can
wait a minute.
Wait just 1 minute, bucko. Yeah, so that was the onus for that. But I mean, like y'all said, y'all talking about a lot of things that, like the president with his coming at countries and just in cities, and the most recent thing is Baltimore. Like, right. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Duff?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's the only way that he could have been more racist is if he would have said those niggas in Baltimore or said that's the only way. Yeah. I mean, like, if we're talking about thresholds and he's right on the line. Like when you talk.
So there's a racist scale.
There's levels to it. Absolutely. There's a racist scale.
Is the racist scale 100 points or is it like a smaller, is it a 10-point system? What are we doing? We got putting it out there.
I'm putting it out there. So then we can keep it at that 100-point scale.
100-point scale.
We can keep it at the 100-point scale, but I will say it's a little nuanced. So let's say that 100 is full on
David
Nazi.
Duke. Oh, not even David Duke. You're talking
David Duke is on the 85, maybe 90. I'm talking about 100% is.
You're talking about Hotel Israelites outside the somewhere in downtown Washington D.C.
The equivalent,
not the equivalent. Are we saying racism across cultures, or are you one of those people who thinks black people can't be racist?
Yeah, I am 100% that black people cannot be racist.
Okay, cool.
And so maybe I need to start from that premise.
Okay.
So I define racism is defined as having, well, part of the thing that defines racism is that you have to be the source of power. Mm-hmm. Right. And so what happened? And so in this society, as far as racism is based on racial hierarchy. And so when one racial group has more power than the other, then they use that power over other races. Right. And so what's very important in my definition and what others' definition of racism is that you have to be empowered to be racist. Mm-hmm. Now, you could be prejudiced. Right. You could be prejudiced, but in order to be racist, you have to be part of the power group. Mm-hmm. Now, it's not to say that, black people and other people of color can't, let's say, do the bidding for the racists, right? Because at some level, like there's some theorists that believe that for racism or any of the isms, so sexism, homophobia, for all of that to really persist in society, you have to have the oppressed group to some degree embody those kind of racist tropes. So one example would be the Chris Rock thing, like black people versus niggas, like these kinds of things that we say, like where we, like as black people, like we'll see like, some young black males out, man, them niggas may be thugging, or, the way that we embody some of these same kind of racist tropes that are there because we're also a part of the society.
Exactly.
Right. And so I think of it as a 100-point scale where, the person who's going to, march, wear their Nazi gear out in public, in Charlottesville, like that's the 100%. I think David Duke is by 85%. Trump is that 78, that's 78 where, and because here's another issue with racism. And I know that.
Damn, you got David Duke at 85 and Trump at 78.
Yeah. And let me tell you why. Let me tell you why, because racism is nuanced in this way that there are certain code words that racism is this kind of funny and this kind of elusive. It is a bit of elusive, but it's malleable, right? It's gonna survive. It's gonna persist. And I don't know. I may say this today, and then God knows what's going to happen 2 years ago. But up until Trump, it was not socially acceptable to talk about black people. To think about Trump's first speech, he says that he's talking about Mexicans and how like rapists and that wasn't socially acceptable.
Yeah,
you say white people thought that. This is what they think. White people think this, but they would never say it out loud. And so like things like the inner city or all of the immigrants, the code words. They're all code words. And that's why I put Trump there, because like he's saying it consciously knowing what the code words are, so that the extreme racists, the ones who can cross that line, they're the ones who are going to go operate. They're the ones who are going to go do his bidding when he can always say, well, I was talking about the city, or I was talking about the countries. Like I was talking about something else other than race. But one of the things that this also does, right? So we have, if I'm putting Trump at that 78, 80%.
Damn, you gave him 2 more points.
Oh, wait, I said 76?
No, 78. But okay. Right here. You rewind back. Right here in the notes.
Right, in the notes, right? And so, but we do still have people who are in that, say, 51 to 70%. And so what it does, what these kinds of races, either whether it be very explicit or even almost explicit, I don't know what to call what Trump says, but people who use the code words, what it allows for people who they're pretty racist, it allows for them to say, I'm not like them. I'm not like Trump. I don't feel that way, but you voted for Trump. You get afraid when there's more than like 2 or 3 black people in a setting. You don't want your kids to go to school with black folks. You're calling the police on people who are barbecuing at an Airbnb. See, and so then when you have an Airbnb and you see that it's a bunch of, or not a bunch, it's not because y'all weren't even a bunch. It was more than 2 black people.
That's a bunch to them.
Right. It's a
That's
and
a
so,
bunch.
but they will
gaggle
say,
of niggas.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And
That's
so,
what they said.
but this person would say that couple would say, well, we're not racist.
Yeah.
We voted for Hillary.
That's exactly what they said, though, right? I mean, that's exactly what they said. Their premise is that they're not racist. I wouldn't even say some of this stuff is like delving into, because I don't necessarily, I see where you're coming from on like, can black people be racist or can they not? A lot of this stuff gets into like the psyche of black people trying to figure out how racist white people are. Mm-hmm. And I don't like it. I'm like, yo, because I don't like, if we're talking about the other isms, and I think that's changing, women ain't trying to figure out how sexist men are. Like, either you sexist or you're not, and you need to prove to me that you ain't. So when it comes to white people and racism, my assumption is unless I know that you're with me, unless you're going out of your way to prove that you're with me, I'm assuming you're not. And it just makes sense. And Trump, to me, is the epitome of centuries of, like, when they're like, oh, he's saying things that people can't say. He's not clever. He's not genius. He's repeating talking points that a party on both sides, Republicans and Democrats, but Republicans especially, have been trumping up. When you say Chicago is infested with crime, you know, infested, like making people sound like they're roaches. When you say like you need to take care of the drug problems that are overwhelming the border, like we're being attacked by like groups of people. This is just
Hordes.
something that
World War Z.
Hordes. Yeah, and you make it sound like that, but this is like he's the end product of something that has been going on since black people got brought here.
Yeah.
Since somebody looked at a black person and went, "Oh, you different?" Like that's really what it comes down to. So it's not. I mean, you remember when Donald Sterling lost his team. He didn't say anything racist. Like we start to get in this
He
thing.
did
like,
say a bunch of racist stuff though.
but their response is, what did he say that was racist? You have black
He's like,
people.
you brought them
coming
black
out.
people.
You brought them black. He didn't say nigga.
Okay.
He didn't say
right.
da da da. He didn't. He just said he don't. What if you said you don't want them white people at your house? And I've said that, but like that's
not the same effect.
It's not. It's definitely not the same effect. And like that's where it really gets into like that whole like defining or whatever, however you want to say it. One group has power and can affect the other group just by any little thing that they do. Mm-hmm. And sometimes those people that are kind of on the fringe, I don't even like to have the am I racist conversation with them because I'm like, you're wasting time. Like, I'm going to spend 2 hours trying to convince you that you might have a prejudicial thought in your head. And at the end of it, you'll go, Doug, you might be right. And I'll be like, Doug, that's a waste of my time. I tell people all the time, like, look, for women, you know that you go to work every day and there are sexist people at your office. There's a sexist dude at every girl, at least one. I said, why can't you assume that I feel the same way? I go to work every day. I know such and such is racist. What you think? I'm going to ruin my day? I'm going to ruin my check because of that? I'm going to avoid this racist person. I'm going to go on about my day. Sometimes I'll bump into you at the potluck or in the little room, or like something like that, or in the lounge. And that's it. But that doesn't mean because we've had a conversation. Because I said, y'all will come up to me and be like, oh, such and such is sexist. But I was like, it's not like y'all call it's not up to the victimized group to call out everything.
That's very true.
Spent all day doing it.
Listen, guys, the last, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes of you two kind of just having that conversation there. So many things to unpack. Changes the direction of kind of what I want, the conversation I want to talk about, because there's so many rich conversations that could come about there. One thing that just jumped out at me, and I'll kind of work in reverse order. You just said something about women and how you're comparing the struggle of like women and sexism versus black folks in racism, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And what I think is interesting right now is that we're in an era that we can all kind of agree that it was overdue for women to not have to put up with some of the bullshit that they put up with just in society in general. But I would assume that we can also agree that in some cases, this it's become a little bit reaching for, like they reach a little bit with some of the accusations that come out. Just big facts, because you'll hear the whole facts and then you're like, oh shit, it was just trying to get somebody, right? Mm-hmm. My question is just this. If black people tried to have that same kind of thing, right? They're doing this to me at work because he's in power. Like, he's in power. He's Harvey Weinstein. And he's doing this to me at work because he's in power. And I gotta just let it go because I'm a woman. Like, could blacks run that same play and be like, he's doing this to me at work because I'm black and he's in power? And I mean, would it have to be some kind of a sexual, sexual in nature? But then what's the equivalent of that? Yeah. If it's it would have to be racist in nature, right? Because if it's sexist, then it'd have to be racist. So he's in power. He's doing something racist. Now it's time for them all to get their comeuppance, and it's the Black Me Too. I mean, but how does that even look or feel? Because I don't know. That just was.
Well, look, for me, it's a weak comparison, but it's one I usually make towards like a white woman. Mm-hmm. That way, it's like, look, because half the time to get people to understand how you feel, a lot of times it's like, okay, now I've literally got to put you in a situation where you can empathize because you felt that way. So now it's like, oh, okay, I understand that. But then at the other time, I'm like, yo, I ain't got all day to do this with each one of you individually. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, either you're going to be with it or you're not. And at this point, like, I'm almost 40. I ain't got, like, the rest of my life to be out here educating every single person I come across. Like, and this goes for, it's not just white women, but Hispanic people that say nigga all the time. And I'd be like, yo, I don't like it when you do that. Well, why not? I said, well, you got a word for us already. Use that one. They'd be like, what? Like, I know your culture has a word for black people. Like, you go everywhere across the world, black people get discriminated against. That's just it.
Darker skinned people, absolutely.
Darker skinned people, like the way that it comes across. So I just feel like a lot of times we get so much onus put on us for like, oh, educate the world about how we feel. And I'm like, you know how we feel. You're just ignoring it.
Yeah, no, and Devon's absolutely correct. Like, why should the oppressed have to then educate and act in that way? But another thing that I just wholeheartedly agree with Devon is the fact that this kind of Me Too era, this new, I guess awakening of women, like, has a lot to do with white women. Mm-hmm. But ironically, right, and this is where like, as black people, we've experienced this just time and time again. The Me Too movement and the phrase Me Too was started by a black woman.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And so it's like we can't even within that realm of this kind of Me Too era, black women can't even get the justice or the recognition that they need. And so even though like it's intersectional in the sense that, like, you know, we have these like levels of oppression, but it's just white people will co-opt. What did Paul Mooney say?
White people will take you.
Yeah, they'll take you.
They'll take you.
They'll take you.
Lionel Richie.
And I think the other thing too about it, the deepness of it, is they can do it completely unintentionally. Like, they can literally erase you by sheer numbers alone. I was reading this book. It's the last guy. His last name is Twitty. He does
Conway Twitty.
That's what I wanted to say. I wanted to say Conway Twitty, but I don't know. It might be Michael Twitty.
But why do we all know who Conway Twitty is? We're of a certain age. That's why.
Either way, he does a book about Southern cooking. He's a black dude. Big black dude does this book about black Southern cooking. And he's basically like, that is American cooking, and it's been completely co-opted. And he's like, it's little things like brisket.
Yeah.
Brisket comes from nowhere. Like, when we were kids, nobody was barbecuing brisket. Like, what were you known if you went to a barbecue? What were you going to be getting?
Some ribs.
Ribs. That's exactly what black people were known for cooking ribs. Ribs are a tougher meat, and usually meats like that require time, they require effort, all that other kind of stuff. All the famous black barbecue chefs, all the famous black barbecue restaurants are known for their ribs. A lot of white, upper echelon, and Jewish people come in, they're cooking brisket. They're taking the same type of style of the cooking, but now you fast forward to like around 2005, 2010, you have all these food magazines that are like, we're going to start rating the best barbecue in the country. We only rate if you cook brisket. You have black people that have had restaurants for hundreds of years. And they're like, we don't cook brisket. Like, that's not part of our thing. But you completely erase. And now all of a sudden, it's like you've got people lined up at whatever random. I'm not going to name no names, but it's always like skinny white guy, glasses, tattoo of like a pig on his arm or something like that. And he's like, I do this old world style barbecue cooking. But I'm like, it's nothing against that person. But it's like, you guys getting in have completely erased a culture of people. And then it's like, when you point it out, they're like, well, I ain't do that. Like, that wasn't me.
Yeah, but this also speaks to the way because I think, like, I guess being trained as a sociologist and just kind of thinking about these things and just thinking about, like, well, how do we solve it? I don't think we can solve it in the interpersonal. Right? No. Like what you just talked about is a system. So they said, we're going to rate the best barbecue.
Yeah.
Right? And so we're going to have a system, but they include a system they create a system that excludes these black, chefs or these barbecue men who have been doing this for a very long time.
It's the Grammys.
Yeah,
that's
exactly what it is.
Yes. It's we're gonna have this thing that, and I mean, just for a cooking thing, just an aside, anything that's hard to cook, like you talked about ribs, anything that's hard to cook or undesirable, black people have made it taste good.
Yeah. Exactly.
Anything from tripe to what is the stuff country black people be eating that I've never ate? Chitlins. Gumbo is just like a whole bunch of just throw whatever is left in the pot.
The thing about it is, years later, like I said, in 20, 30 years, some white kid's gonna pick up some ribs.
Yeah.
And be like, let me try this. And I look back at the old styles and people are gonna be like, oh, this is amazing. How you do that? And I'm like, there's some black dude that's been cooking ribs for
some white boy's
years.
gonna start rapping. And he's gonna he's gonna drop an album and it's gonna be like, oh my God, Britney. I mean, I've been listening to something recently, and there's this whole thing on the Ringer that they're talking about 1999 because it's 20-year anniversary of 1999. It's pretty cool that it's like the music and the songs that came out in 99. 99 was lit, right? But like they were rating the best albums of 99. It's like Lauryn Hill, X Factor and shit. It's like, I mean, like that album, whatever album she had that song on. It's like some Goody Mob stuff. It's Jay-Z. It's TLC. It's all kind of stuff. Britney Spears is number one. And like, no doubt it was jamming. Britney Spears was jamming back in the day, but that's all it is. It's like a hip hop pop collab type thing that it was like, oh, you do a little kind of a pop feel. So I mean, that's talking about co-opting things. But I really want to go back to a little part that y'all talked about when you were talking about the continuum. And this has been standing out and sticking in my head since you said it, and I got to bring it back. You said that you were talking about that scale of racism. And you was like, man, maybe I don't do X, Y, Z, or maybe whatever that. You don't know that you're 51% racist. My question is, who are 0 to 50? Who are these people? Explain to me who is 0 to 50% racist. And let me even take it back. Is there such thing as a white person walking around who's 0? And but just tell me who's a 0 to 50. Explain me. Tell me who that person is.
I guess that's why I was saying I don't put it on a scale. Racism is just racism, and the effects of it could be anything. And that's agree. Also why.
But I agree.
I think,
but the scale is way more fun to do.
Oh, the scale is absolutely more fun to do. You can be like, oh,
this is visual. I'm definitely. They're closing their eyes, listening right now. They're like, oh, I see the scale. And I got a real question. I'm putting it to Duff because Duff had Trump at 78%, David Duke at 85%.
Absolutely.
The people who put us out the Airbnb in the mid 60s. Who are the 0 to 50%?
They were just mid 60.
That's what Duff said.
You
said
no. In the like racist.
No, they were really racist as shit.
Well, and like and I guess I have to qualify because like racism is there is no little bit of racism. A racist act is a racist act, but the problem is that, and this kind of goes into this idea of racism being systemic, being institutional, and I think it's a bit problematic to think about racism solely within, like I said, the interpersonal relationships. But white people who are, one of my former colleagues, I would say, for a white person to be not racist, they have to be, therefore, anti-racist. Okay. They have to...
But I really like that. Yeah. Does the anti-racism put them on the other side of the 50?
Absolutely. But it has to be...
But it feels like if you call somebody 40% racist, that's an insult.
Well, because a racist act is a racist act. Okay. Right?
Yeah. And so, even if you're fighting racism actively, you can still be a 35% racist on the scale?
Because, well, and this is, yes. I'll say yes.
I'll give you one example.
Yeah, go ahead.
Charlemagne posted this earlier this week. He said, Nancy Pelosi will let your black ass die. Fight the fascists. And it was a quote from Huey off of the Boondocks. Mm-hmm. But Charlemagne posted that. And I'm assuming, I didn't really dig deep, but I'm assuming it has something to do with the squad, right? It has something to do with the fact that Nancy Pelosi's not stepping up against Trump in these attacks that he's doing right now. So that puts Nancy Pelosi at a place where she's not actively fighting against racism. So would that put her in the 0 to 50% racist realm? Is that kind of...
That's a perfect, I think that's the perfect example.
And her response also, the people that support her and her response of, when you say that, where it's like, you got these 4 women that are like, hey, your policies and your lack of understanding of coming forward and your lack of getting out here and getting as angry as we are because it's not affecting you is in and of itself racist. And their response is always... How dare you?
Preach.
We're friends. We've worked this out. Yeah. And it's like, yes, we are friends. But I am shocked at the fact that even though we're friends, when this guy comes out the blue, and that's why I always bring up, especially with white women, the sexism. If Trump had to come out and attack y'all as women, you'd have been up here with us. Because...
No, but he did. And they didn't give a fuck.
No. I'm talking about he attacked them as minority women. Pelosi was...
you're talking about...
That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about as a squad.
Yeah, we thought grabbing about it.
Attacking them as minority women, Pelosi was like, okay. He's attacking the minority women. If he had got up there and attacked them as women, any woman can get it. White women, black women, and I don't care what color you are. Then everybody would have jumped up and it would have been like, oh, okay, we're the woman squad here. So that's the thing where it's a problem where it's like, yo, if you're going to sit on the fence, look, it's cool. I feel like politicians and people always run into that where it's like, yo, I'm always dealing with black people and I'm cool with them. But then they'll do something and they feel like black people turned on them. And I'm like, we didn't turn on you. We just know what you are. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You with us when you need us. And sometimes you're not. By and large, the majority of the time, you're not with us. Mm-hmm. You have to be truly apathetic to be in a city or be in charge of a city where black people are like, I don't know why it's happening, but black people just happen to be the poorest people here. Mm-hmm. Just happen. Right. I don't know why. You have to be apathetic because black people there are like, oh, I know why it's happening. Yeah. There's a system in place that makes us poor. Yeah. If you're not like there's a system in place that makes us poor, you have to be thinking maybe them black people lazy. Yeah. Maybe them black people criminal.
And here's and again, Pelosi's a great example in that I guess exchanges too, but even going back to the Baltimore thing, Pelosi's dad was the former mayor of Baltimore. That's your fucking city too. Yeah, but that's not your city anymore because there's just too many niggas.
Because the Wire,
right? Yeah, because the Wire and
Chris and Snoop killing people, putting them in abandoned buildings.
But and so if we think about racism, you may not be pushing me off the ledge, but I'm hanging on the ledge about to fall off, and you looking at me.
Yeah,
right. Especially for people.
Or you turning the other way.
Just turning the other way. But people in power, though, I think that if you're a white person in power, and you then choose, then that's kind of pushing you a little bit higher on the racism scale, because you have the ability to just speak
You have a responsibility,
out.
and you have a voice. You have an outlet to get out there, and I think apathy. And I mean, I'm seeing it. It's very visual now. It took us a while to kind of talk through this in real time, but it's very visual to me to see. Just hopefully, like the last time we did this, you saw the continuum of wokeness. Hopefully, you see the continuum of racism right now, and I can see it clear as day how your actions and your behaviors and your proactive nature towards combating racism, speaking out against it, making sure that your work environment. So, I mean, you work with these people, and this was a big part of what I talked about last week. We work with these people. We work with these people on a day-to-day basis. Everyone does. And so what makes the people that you work with, what level are they of racism? Are they sitting in the teacher's lounge, or are they sitting in the around the water cooler saying, "Hey, I voted for Trump and MAGA and build that wall"? No, the majority of them are not going to be at 60 and 70 and above in your presence.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in your presence, they might still be 47%, because anytime something comes up about racism, or anytime something is happening in this country, or even in your micro situations at your work environment that you're at all the time, if they're not speaking out against it, if they're not actively saying, "Hey, we don't need that around here," then you're perpetuating it. So, but where does gaining or benefiting from white supremacy or from white privilege, where does that fall? What if you're speaking out against it, but at the same time you're benefiting from white privilege, and you're just like, I think it's bad, and I think racism is bad, and I'll speak out on it all the time, but I got this promotion over this black dude, and he probably deserved it, and I'm not going to say that because it, benefits me as a white person.
Well, I mean, like that could be a good example, but I think a better example, or a more complicated example of white privilege would be, people who grew up, like white people who grew up in the suburbs, whose parents had, the GI Bill, or who got loans. And so like this idea of wealth in white people who have benefited from, I guess, passing down the generations that have passed down privilege due to, whether it be because your ancestors were former slaveholders and y'all just had dough like that, or because of, again, other systems like, primarily like with, the GI Bill, with home loans, FHAs, things of that nature. So that's kind of complicated, because a lot of these white people who are middle class, who their parents were middle class, who their parents were middle class, you're dealing with white privilege, but we don't always identify that as privilege. So that's where it gets a little bit tricky to say, like, okay, if you're a person of that's privilege, you've benefited from being white. What does that white person do? I don't have the answer.
And it's a question. It's a good question to put out there, because I don't have the answer for that either. And something that just dawned on me, that's like, it's kind of one of those I'll pull my head up aha moments. I was telling both of you guys before we started recording that last week's podcast, I stopped the recording, and then I edited a part out where I said, and the quote was something like, and what I'm listening and I hear you guys saying, we're using the term white people, over and over. Yeah. This is one of those pods where white people don't be offended if we're not talking about you. We talking like, you know where you should have a better idea where you stand on this continuum of racism as a white American at this point. But I said something last week about how sometimes black people will get up and be like, I don't want to go to work because I don't want to deal with white people today. And I deleted that part because I said, man, that it came across, it was biting. And it was me just having a conversation. It was just a monologue I was having last week. And without context, it was kind of biting. But I think I have context for it now because of this conversation. I think when something happens, whether like I'm watching Rosewood, and those are the examples I always use, Malcolm X, anytime those come on, How They See Us. When we watch this, I'm mad at white people. And the thing is, I'm mad because I'm going to work and I'm going to be in an environment that's on a 0 to 100 scale. And even if everybody's 20%, or even if whatever people are in the lower realms of racism where they're not actively doing it, if you're not outraged like I am, if you're not sitting around thinking about this or offering up like some kind of a, hey, I watched this, or, and it's easier, it's a tougher example is talking about those movies because that would be something I'm doing on my own. But a better example is Trump talking that shit. If Trump's out here talking that shit about like specific like racist stuff and everybody in America hears it, and then you come to work and there's no kind of a talk about it, there's no kind of a like, man, we don't need any of that Trump type behavior. That's why I love the president of our university when he sends out those messages and he'd be like, look, what Trump doing, I ain't with it. Yeah. And that kind of active stuff, talking out against stuff, so that probably is why some of those reasons why I don't want to, like, when black people feel like, and it's not just me, when black folks feel like I don't want to go around these people today, it's because of that, because you know you're not going to get any kind of a positive conversation or affirmation or response that's looking for change. It's just going to be the same old thing, man.
Yeah, and that's also a level of white privilege. White people do not go to their job worrying if something racist is going to happen to them. Just like most men don't go into their job, worrying whether or not they're going to get sexually harassed. And so, like, not having, can you imagine, like, how more productive you can be as a worker if you're not going into the job worrying about, dang, is this person going to say, because as you mentioned, we all know who supported Trump, who the racists are, like, in the degrees of it, like, just.
Are those two things one and the same? Those who supported Trump and the racist?
It's like a perfect circle.
Not necessarily.
The Venn diagram is
It depends. It depends.
I heard a white guy say that some people just wanted anarchy. And he was like, it wasn't about Trump. They just wanted some shit to say.
But even people
but
like
is that
that,
true?
like saying you want anarchy want anarchy when it's at the expense of white people. Like you wanted anarchy at the expense of minorities.
Yes.
You wanted anarchy. And when those people make arguments, they ignore all the stuff dealing with minorities. And they're like, well, I'm just focused on the financial aspects. Or I'm just focused on... I'm like, oh, so you're just not focused on the people. Like, people as people, you not worried about that at all.
Is Trump just ramping this shit up right now because an election's coming up?
Nah. I think...
But you don't feel like it's ramped up right now?
I feel like
I feel
like this month has been ramping up.
Yeah, like I think he's been wilding. Like
this ain't par for the course Trump for the last 3 years. He hasn't been on this. He's been on 10 for the last 3 weeks.
10 for these last few weeks, and I think it's because of because of the Democrats, because like maybe he thinks we're comfortable. Like, I mean, I don't know, because like a lot of those speeches, those are Stephen Miller productions. And you've seen Stephen Miller, like, because in the last 2 years, Stephen Miller's position got a little, he's now a senior advisor. Like, he's just saying, Trump, like, whatever you feel in the day, go for it. That's my suspicion.
I mean, he's definitely got to shore up the base, but it's one of those things where I'm just like, this is how things are run now. Like, it's like now we're just going to be a lot more. I wish I could say things are like ramping up, but it's more like, oh, we just really, really. It's kind of like when they're like, hey, are black people getting like shot more by the police? Or do like niggas just have cameras? And I was like, people have cameras. Like, people at the time, like when when you go back and you'll be watching like you'll watch like an old movie, not even that old. You'll watch like Boys in the Hood, and it'll be like a racist cop. And then you'll go back and watch a movie from like the 90s, like 80s. And there'd be a racist cop in that movie fucking fight. And then the 70s, it'd be a racist cop fucking fight. You'll see Good Times. There'd be a racist cop.
Yeah, they shot Cornbread. The cop shot Cornbread on Cornbread early.
We have been making the same film. It's kind of like when people were sitting me like, oh, like the teacher movies they would always show. And I said, you know why I don't like teacher movies? Because it's always like a majority person coming into a minority school, and I'm like, so that means y'all know minority schools is messed up, and and he relates to the kids. I said, so you know the kids are great. You know it's just the system they put in. It's just the last one they did, Antonio Banderas was dancing with him. Mm-hmm. Like, I was like, fix the school. Quit sending this white knight to take. Every time I see that movie, whether it's real or not, I'm like, wow, you saved 30 kids. and 800 people at that school did not graduate.
You saved the drama class.
Congratulations. They're like, the graduation's still low.
So, but you know who saved the whole school? You know who saved the whole school, though?
Who?
Man, come on.
Joe Clark.
Joe Clark.
But you also saw that Joe Clark, as a black person, was like, I'm fixing the school. Yeah. And he was also like, these kids ain't the problem. You know what's the problem? These drug dealers, these teachers, these parents, this system, the fire department, the police. I will fight every single system to get this system in order.
Take the lights off.
And when white people kind of come in these movies, they're like, I'm going to work with I'm going to get Jamal. He don't talk, but if I can just get him on my side, he'll get the whole class. I'm like, Jamal in the whole game. How is Jamal in the whole game?
Asia is pregnant and and Marcus don't come to school. Yeah. I mean, it's the same.
Well, I guess there's two things, right? Because I think because film is very indicative of the society that we live in. So there's the one trope of this, I guess, a neoliberal kind of mindset that it's all about the individual, right? The individual will come in and say, because we believe that we live in this society where it's all based on my meritocracy, or that this is a society based on the meritocracy, and if I work hard enough, blah, 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 blah. So you have that going on. Then you have the white savior, the white knight trope, that the white person will always come and say, that's a common kind of Hollywood trope. But all of this kind of goes back to where we're focusing on the individual, and it's really the systems, the systemic racism, it's the institutional racism that's also very difficult to deal with. Like, it's easy to kind of point out a person, but the systems and the institutions, how do we do that?
It's easy to point out a person when they're doing something negative, and it's easy to point out people when they do positive results. So it's like, okay, Trump is racist. Yeah, but I'm more concerned about the systems that this group of people is perpetuating. Same thing when it's like, oh, look, this one kid from the inner city made it. Okay, why did he have to even struggle to get out of that? Why is this school so horrible? Why is this set up like this? How come this? I know y'all got money. How come this school don't have money? Like, how come your whole area got money, and it's just like, and you start to see
HISD
how it works.
has the most affluent schools in the district. I mean, in the city, and the worst.
And the worst. And it always is. You get tired of the coincidental. Like, it's like HISD has the most affluent, and it's also the worst. And it just so happens that the white kids wound up at the affluent ones, and the black kids wound up at the worst.
No, you're right.
And then they make the jump. Like, somebody that's of dominant power that believes it is like, the black kids probably made it like that. And I'm like, no. If you took one of those and you take a couple of those black kids when you bust them out or you put them in a different system, all of a sudden things start clicking.
I mean, and you guys said something there, and you used the term, and you talked about Antonio Banderas, and you said he came in as the white knight. Antonio Banderas is not white, and I just want to say this.
If you're not,
I just want to say this, and that, you can say it because that's what I was going to say.
I'm about to say, if you're not black, you white. There's no.
And what is that written down on my paper right here?
Okay. And I'm gonna tell you like this.
But that's a thing. That's a thing
really
too.
When it comes down to it, and maybe that's a very complicated thing that deals with the whole dominance of like white people and European conquest. But every other race has gotten a one up. Like, it's cool when you get here. I don't care what you are, whether even talking about the divisions of Europeans, Italian, Irish, whoever gets here gets shitted on. And then they get a little leg up and they go, I'm not them niggas though. And that's it. And then they just get built into the system. But you're seeing it happen with, like, I'm really getting tired of seeing Hispanic cops shooting black people. And then they go, and when you say it, you go, yo, that he's not white. I said, that's not the concern. First of all, if we went back to their original country of origin, you're not going to even see. I get tired of all the black people here just happen to be poor. Yeah. And all the lighter skinned people happen to be okay.
Well, he's from the country that that perpetuates that shit more.
Yeah,
Than
But he
well, it's-
recognizes
Well,
that.
yeah, no, and see, but because I'm gonna push back a little bit,
Go
right? In the sense that like the idea of like, okay, a Latino or Latinx person like killing a black person, right? Nigga down in the north side of Houston, the one he was mentally ill, he had his pants down.
Yeah, and they shot him in the street.
Yeah.
Black dude. Right.
Yeah,
and so it's
absolutely.
like, and so this is where I speak of like, it's not about the individual, it's about the systems. In policing as a system,
Oh, yeah.
if someone, if I feel threatened, I can blast you legally. Right.
Yeah.
And so, but who have we criminalized in the society?
And as
who
a,
have we made?
as a
Yeah.
system, we have said black people, and the darker the black person,
And the darker
is threatening.
It's threatening, and so it
That's
doesn't
the point
matter.
I was getting
Yeah,
at.
and so it doesn't matter. Like yes, like a white person clearly racism, but even though it may be a Latinx or it may be a Latino or the Asian dude that shot, I think he Asian in Castillo.
Fernando?
Fernando. Yeah. So like he was Asian, I believe, and so like this is where I talk about like I'm at this point of where I'm at. Like I mean the interpersonal, like the person on person relationship racism issues. Like we can talk about those, and those are like very problematic. But I'm more trying to wrap my head around how these systems, how the rules of the game are made to like disadvantage black people
No, absolutely.
in the sense of in the sense of policing, like actually kill black men,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
And so that's where it's like it doesn't matter who the individual is in that certain position. The position itself that is a systemic kind of anti-black organization. I think that was one of the reasons why Obama, and it's controversial, like I mean I don't know, we've been posed with Obama a little minute, but like this is why Obama couldn't really help us. The president of the United States is representing this white, racist, sexist, homophobic, whatever kind of negative thing society that we live in. Like he can do what he can, right? But it's all about the systems.
Yeah.
It's about the
It's
rules,
completely
about
about
the
the system.
operations.
And I think I wholeheartedly agree with what you're saying that the system, and I mean, it sometimes feels like a cop out. It sometimes feels like you're not being descriptive enough when, like, I was in an Uber last week with this guy from South Africa. Well, no, he was from Rhodesia. And he was telling me how blacks were a servant class where he was from and how it took him moving to the United States and being here for years to realize that he was really racist. And he was just saying some stuff about black people and how, working and not working and stuff. He was saying some racist shit to me in the Uber, but he was trying to make it feel like he understood. And I just was like, man, it's systems in place. And every time you say that, it almost comes across to me. For myself personally, it feels like I almost feel like I need to explain to you these systems because it's. But just take it at face value, listeners of other persuasions who are listening to this, that there are systems in place. Right. That are here to marginalize people of other ethnic groups, specifically African Americans. And what I was talking about with the other ethnic groups is that if you're not a black person, then you don't get the same level of discrimination.
Yes.
And because you don't receive the same level of discrimination, you feel as though, and it's something that our society has made it so that you feel like you're better than. And there's this underlying kind of war that's been years that Asian people are smart at math, they're good at math and they're smart and they're docile and XYZ. So Asian people can kind of be like under white people as far as like a number two race. Then it leaves black people and brown people at the bottom and no one wants to be at the bottom. So brown people make it a point to try to feel like they're superior to black people.
And the other thing,
and it's a thing.
Clearly about
It's a
that.
thing.
The history of Asian people in this country, looking at that alone, the Asian people are smart and Asian people are great and all that other kind of stuff. That's new. You go back and you look historically, they were demonized way worse.
In the 40s.
I mean,
Pearl Harbor, we didn't
Chinese exclusion
there was
act,
so when
like,
people are always like, what can happen? I'm like, there was an active campaign by the government to change the perception of Asian people here in the United States. So it is one of those things where it's just like, those are some of the things that you have to look at.
Yeah. Well, and because here's the thing, because because we live again in a society like where like we're based on stereotypes because it's still about racial hierarchy. Even though, so for example, for Asians, even though Asians are stereotyped as this quote unquote good stereotype, that they're studious, that they're good in math, that they're hard workers, right? That's a stereotype.
That they stand close behind you in lines at stores.
Right. That may be a stereotype too.
And apparently, in the rest of the world, everybody stands close to you. I didn't know that. America has a longer arm length distance. I didn't know that. Like I was just like, oh, like Doug, why are you talking so close?
So that's a stereotype, and that would be looked at as a positive stereotype. But you mentioned another stereotype that they're docile, that they're submissive,
Exactly.
And so there's these studies that look at how Asian people are able to get the job. Right, they can get a job because they've gone to many of them have gone to good schools, good grades, whatever. But once they're in the job, they're not looked at as being leaders.
Yeah.
Right. So they hit almost like I guess it's not a glass ceiling, right? I guess it's a glass
They just
ceiling.
got a barrier. That's right there.
It's just a barrier.
Of the perception.
Yeah. So that who's going to be the good leader? The white man.
The white man.
The white man is still. Yeah. He's still going to come in
because the other
here.
thing too is, and I always be like, look, if you're looking, you got to look at the end result of what happens. And like, if I showed up anywhere and if I showed up somewhere and, well, you know what? We'll take like cooking. Everybody growing up, cooking is woman's thing. That's like the sexist thing is women cook. All the top chefs are usually white men. So what happens where I was like, and I'll be looking like, I'm like, yo, I'm pretty sure Bobby Flay is great. My grandma cooked better than him. I know it. I know it in my heart. Like, you know what I'm saying? And even when they're like, yo, I respect these people, like these women that came up.
And every
so
time
how
you say
come these
cooking,
women?
I'm going to say that Fabulous is great, but Eminem was the best ever. Do you want me to believe that Eminem was the best rapper ever? You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
there's always going to be...
There's always that. So, like, when you're looking at the results of systems, if I came down, if aliens landed down here and they were like, hey, black people must get a bad deal because they're, like, all in jail. Like, I said, so either you're going to say black people got a bad deal because they're all in jail, or you're like, and a system put them there, or you're going to be like,
black people are bad.
Black people are bad.
Black people are bad.
Hey, somebody
Y'all
has to
can't
put
get
them
on
on the
the
ship
ship
with
with
us.
us.
And if you're one of the people that says, oh, black people are bad, I'm like, oh, okay, I know where you stand. You just think black people are bad, and for some reason, I made it. You're one of the good ones. But I'm looking at it like, oh, no, definitely. I mean, you see, like, with the legalization of weed. Yeah. Like, now, all of a sudden, something that even my family demonized, literally, and now it's like,
what's the stock?
And
what
now
can I get some stock in?
we all smoke it. It's all cool. It's all great. You have at least 3 solid generations in our lifetime that are in jail because of it.
We've been incarcerated because of that, and this is again I think one of the things, because we can go on and on and on about systems, but then it's about, well, then what do we do, right? Because I agree, it can sound like a cop out, because like if we do talk about systems are big. Institutions are big. We are individuals. It seems crazy, or it seems not scary, but it seems formidable. And so then the question is, well, what do we do? Right?
I'm careful about my praise of white rappers. My brother, no, that's serious. Look, I've always worked in hip hop publications and things like that. And look, this is nothing against I have nothing against Eminem. Never. And this is because I saw Eminem coming up. I've always thought he was amazing. Always thought he was incredible. What I have a problem with were his fans that were coming up. And not the real fans, the white fans that kind of came on. The ones that say things like, I don't like hip hop, but I like Eminem. I wish more hip hop people talked about subjects like Eminem. All y'all talk about is guns and drugs. I said, all he talks about is guns and drugs. And he talks about raping women. Like, I don't understand what that. Well, all y'all talk about is crime and stuff like that. But you don't listen to rap. Well, yeah, I don't listen to rap. It's black stuff. Like, that's really what it is. And so when it's like, when Eminem says, you ask Eminem, what, and usually when you have a white person that's coming in that respects the culture, who are your favorite rappers? Oh, I like Redman. Oh, I like Biggie. Oh, I like Cool G Rap. Then you ask his fans, and it's like, who do you like? I like Eminem. I like Haystack. I like, and they
Yellow
name
Wolf.
they name 5 white rappers, and I'm like, you're telling me in a field of 4,000 rappers,
Bubba Sparks,
you
Yellow
happen
Wolf.
to name the 10 white rappers, and
Machine Gun Kelly.
and 6 of them are inactive. You said Bubba Sparks,
Machine Gun Kelly.
like you said Bubba Sparks.
Paul Wall.
So that's my thing. I said, this is nothing against none of those rappers that were named. I have a problem with the fact, because I'm like,
Do when you ask
I
Asian
like-
people, do they say gin?
They would. They would. Look,
Chingo Bling, if Mexican people
My
are going to
whole
say
thing
South
is-
Park Mexican.
I don't watch golf like that, but they'd be like, who's your favorite golfer?
Tiger
Woods.
Woods.
Why? I mean, he's good and he's black. That's just what it is. If another person steps up, and if somebody was like, nah, this is a good golfer, I don't really follow it like that. Cool.
But you know this though, and this is an aside. But if Black Tyrone Hankerson Sr. come out and he's golfing and he got the Jordans on, Jordan cleats with the hat turned to the backwards,
I'm gonna watch him.
I'm gonna like him more than Tiger.
I'm absolutely.
I'm gonna like- I'm gonna like
I need a Tiger replacement.
I'm waiting.
That brother is very problematic.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the golfer that's affected by Tiger. That's like, I'm gonna come out here, but I'm gonna do it like more authentic than you did.
We'll see if that ever happens. But no, you guys were talking about Trump, and I definitely want to touch on these things before we get out of here. And this is an important thing that I think is happening right now. We got presidential elections coming up. In not coming up, but the Democratic Party is nominating different people, and they're having different debates or whatever. And my question is, we got these black candidates out here running these streets, these light-skinned black candidates. And I mean, from last I noticed, we got 3 of them. I only knew of 2 until I did my research. So we got Kamala Harris and Cory Booker, and then we got some dude named Wayne Massam. He's the mayor of Miramar, California.
Yes, I have heard of. He didn't make the debates, but he is running.
Oh, so why he couldn't make the debates?
Because he ain't got no pull. Like nobody's
because he's the mayor.
Okay, so
and he's not Buttigieg.
Out of that list, the only person that's legitimate out of those 3 you named is Kamala. That's it.
Kamala?
Is it Kamala? Is Kamala? Whatever. You know, I mean,
it's not. Kamala is the dude who used to wrestle back in the in WCW back in the 1980s.
Like I feel,
but this is what I'll say about that. And I hear you. And okay, so let's take a step back. Let me rewind back and bring you guys back to a time not so long ago, 2007. In 2007, late 2007, early 2008, it was Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton, right? Mm-hmm. And I was definitely one of those people who was like, we need to vote. We need to get Hillary Clinton to win this primary because Barack Obama can't win the presidency. They're not going to vote for a black man. Yeah. So I don't want another George Bush's whack. George Bush doesn't care about black people, all of that. I was on all of that shit. Mm-hmm. I was like, we need Hillary in there because Barack probably can't do it. And then he's surprised, doing one Iowa. Okay, Barack. So then I was all in, full speed ahead. I feel very similar about Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, and Wayne Massam, even to a certain Lil Wayne. Lil Weezy F. Yeah, but I feel the same. Like, y'all cool, but Kamala, stop coming at Biden neck.
Nah, man.
We need Biden intact. So that's how I was feeling. But we
don't need Biden. And see, when
what we need? That's
because you bring up Obama and Hillary. Obama and Hillary fought hard.
Yeah.
Like, fought hard. Some of those tropes that the Republicans were using against
birtherism
Obama,
shit?
the birtherism, that came out of Hillary's camp.
Well, I think it came out of Trump.
Trump jumped onto it. But I'm telling you, that was a hard fought fight. And man, look, if you're gonna be president, you're gonna put in the work.
Okay.
Like Biden just stepping up. Look, the fact that Biden got blindsided at that was just proof that I'm like, are you taking this serious?
Yeah, he might not.
Like, you need to jump out here. Obama had a misstep very early. They really wanted his, where it was like, I don't know if you're taking this serious. Okay, so now it's time for you to either step up. You're going to win this because you need to win it, and you're going to support and you're going to represent the people, or not, or get out the way.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
Obama was some different shit too.
Yeah,
he's some different shit than all these people.
Absolutely.
Obama was a shooting star.
Yeah, he's some different
shit. I mean,
shit.
like, he was a once in a lifetime
just individual, the charisma. So I mean, he was just
and now he's
just
still
a brilliant politician.
Now he's still young on vacation somewhere,
Man,
living.
chilling. Getting him and Michelle getting them Netflix dollars, like.
But I'm drinking Mai Tai.
Yeah. But here's the thing, right? And so this is kind of like thinking about institutions and thinking about, well, what do we do about racism? Kamala, Cory Booker.
Am I saying it wrong? Or are you saying it wrong? I thought it was Kamala.
Kamala. Yeah, she's
what's her last
Indian.
name? Harris.
Yeah, but she's half Indian.
I know, but I
That's
just
her
feel, I
Indian
think
name.
I don't want to
Somewhere
disrespect her by
online.
constantly.
I don't either.
I think I saw online that they had it spelled like the pronunciation said like a comma in a sentence. And that's why I say it like that.
No. I bet you it
I'm
could.
pretty sure I saw that on TV. Now somebody might be listening like this nigga.
I'm gonna tell you right now
wrong.
too. That's the teacher in you, because that just helped me right there. Because I was like, I'm gonna mispronounce this girl, her name for the rest of my life. Thinking like, oh wait. Kamala. Okay, Kamala. All right, I'll let you know.
And it's no disrespect to my sister, my brothers, the one brother in Florida. Weezy F, man.
I hope he hears this, because that might get him some traction. If he came out, it's your boy Weezy. Y'all know me. Y'all know
on social media. The young bro.
Y'all know me.
Oh, man. Okay, so back, and it's not. It's I love them, right? But not everybody who is black is going to help me or be for my cause.
Okay, that's what I wanted to talk about.
And that's where, like, if we're talking about systems and institutions, I think part of what we do in this kind of voting game, we gotta stop voting for who we think will win. The Republicans that when they were in the primaries, nobody thought Trump would win. Them white folks said, I'm voting for who I want, and Trump is who I want. Exactly. And so with them, like, I don't want to go for a safe vote. There's only one candidate who's talking about disrupting institutions, and it's Bernie. And I just saw a thing about Bernie, like, for the 2016 primaries, Bernie only got supported. He only had something like 26% of the black vote, right? Because Hillary had us. Hillary, part of that Bill Clinton thing. They were like the Pied Piper, like getting niggas. And it's like, we have to start with, we can't go with power. Well, yeah. And so, like, is it what? Not with his flute, with his saxophone on Arsenio Hall show, right?
Pied Piper getting niggas. Go ahead.
And so, and so, but this, like, I think the Democratic Party felt, and many people were feeling like, oh, this is Hillary's time. This is Hillary's time. How do you fuck that up? How do you fuck up a candidacy and a presidential run to lose against Donald Trump? There's something wrong. I feel that, like, when Kamala she was the state attorney of California. She was the DA of San Francisco.
Doing some dirty shit. It
just kind of comes with the territory. You locking up a bunch of niggas. There were ways in which, and like literally like us. And so, but
she was playing a saxophone and bringing them niggas to
jail in a line, one by one. And
but here's my only thing about that though. What was she locking up? Because I always hear the locking up. Really, I really hear like she was locking up parents for truancy violations. Yeah. Right?
That was in San Francisco.
And then you start looking at the cases, and I was like, but where? Like, the threat, and by all means, I am not the person that's like, we need to be threatening people with truancy, like locking up things. But my other thing, too, is she's not the only one to have done this. And in terms of the people that are running for a presidential election, she's not the only prosecutor up there. It does worry me that the black prosecutor, they're like, why are you prosecuting black prosecutors?
No. But it's not about the prosecutor. If we're going to truly disrupt a system, there's only one candidate. Like, Bernie Sanders is the only candidate.
What about Elizabeth Warren?
I think that she's a wolf in sheep's clothing. She loves capitalism. She says she's going to be a capitalist to the day that she dies. And I think that capitalism is part of the issues that we're going, like, to have a safe, or to have an equitable society is something Bernie's been talking about for a long time. Now, Bernie had some missteps in the 2016 presidential campaign when it came to black people. Like, he thought this was it's all about the economics, right? And it's like, nah, Bernie, it's about race too. And he's changed, right? Like, he was evolved.
Talking to Cardi B. We probably talk about this on the pod this week too. He had a whole little thing with Cardi B talking about canceling student debt.
There it is.
And
raising
I guess
minimum wage
is,
and shit.
even taking it a step further, I would really like it as, especially for black people, I don't even think we should get involved in the cult of personality of the person at all. Like, everybody should literally be taking names off of everything, and you need to blindly look at the policies of the person and look at all the policies, just write up thing, and then I like this person, and then see who they are.
It's like 28 people though right now. So my point is that there might be the person who has all of the policies that are perfect for us and whatever, but they're going to get whittled out by systems that are in place that have nothing to do with us. And I mean,
it is a definite,
like it might be
possibility.
Wayne Massam from Miramar, Florida, might be that guy.
But the thing about it is, even today, and I don't know if it's
about Roberto O'Rourke.
No, my theory is it has a lot to do with
not Beto. Go ahead.
My theory is it has a lot to do with the internet, but like when people are like, Obama was a shooting star and that came out of nowhere, the flip side is the same thing happened with Trump. Mm-hmm. We don't know what is going to happen with our elections from now on. Obama was not supposed to win, and then he won. Trump was definitely not supposed to win. You're like, there's no way.
There was a Bill Maher skit recently where he was like, I'm not even asking this person to run, but there's only one surefire person who will win. Oprah. He said Oprah. I mean, but it made sense. Like, you know, it's like, I think we're kind of in a I'm not going to say a post-seriousness of elections, that there's got to be some kind of a celebrity aspect to it. But even more than that, I think this is an elephant in the room that there's not enough time to discuss. That there's a documentary on Netflix talking about the data right now. If y'all want to check it out.
Yes.
Man, that shit, I watched like a couple of minutes of it. I'm going to go finish that up very soon. But it's talking about how there's like 5,000 points of data on every single person in the United States, and how they looked at everyone and saw who was the most susceptible to be able to influence, and then sent them specific targeted messages via social media and via phones and outlets, and then pushed them towards making certain decisions that got Donald Trump in office. Like, this shit ain't like, it's not just, Donald Trump is not smart enough to do some of the shit that ends up happening.
And it's what we're talking about with systems, but it's just on a digital enhanced scale.
So let's take this back a little bit. And this is the question I have. Do we have to support those black candidates? You're saying no, Horace.
No.
You're saying no, Devaughn. Okay.
No.
So why then do we have to turn on them though? Because there's a guy.
Absolutely
There's
not.
a guy who, and I'm not going to say his name. He went to school with us. He listens to a lot of podcasts. He's my guy. But every damn other day
on the rampage,
he'd be on. Okay, we're going to have to tell him to chill. The dialogue, we need you to chill, man. We just need you to chill.
No.
Like, you can't keep coming at the black people like this.
So here's my thing.
He's got a diverse set of opinions, and I appreciate it. It's just sometimes, D, come on, man.
But it is one of the things where, and I've given him a pass on it for the most part, because I was like, okay, you're coming from a region where she comes from. Mm-hmm. So my whole thing is like, look, there are people I know in the legal world here, and I don't care what they run for. Mm-hmm. Like, in 20 years from now, if that person's running for something, I'm like, nah, he or she been shady. Yeah. Like, he or she was shady 30 years ago when I met them, and da-da-da-da. So that kind of thing, like, getting over that, it takes a lot to be like, okay, let me sit up here and just look at the policies and just vote. Because it's hard to get past that as a person. And especially when we're dealing with things like, this person locks up people that either I know or that look like me. Yeah. Or that have been in a situation that I'm in. See, now, I do agree, he go hard.
That doesn't hold. He hates Jamel Hill. Like, anytime he locks into something, he will continuously go hard on him.
He go hard. It's entertaining, though.
Yes, it's entertaining. But he go hard. But the other things that I talk about is just kind of how I don't think it's just him. I just threw him out there. You don't know me, whatever. I'm just throwing him out there. But other people, like there's quotes about Cory Booker, and they still want to talk about his sexuality, about how all of a sudden, now he's dating Rosario Dawson, like when you say been gay for the last 15 years. But people kind of been that shush about it. Mm-hmm. And then, now you want to pull up at the Delta convention because old girl is AKA, so now you need like it's a whole bunch of other little things in there. But I see this on social media with people like talking down on Cory Booker, talking down on Kamala Harris, but I don't see the same like hate for like talking down on Bernie Sanders or talking down on Elizabeth Warren or talking down on Beto.
Or even let me give Donald some fuel for then like say Joe Biden. Well, not that I need to give him some, but like Joe Biden ran for president in like 88.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He had a whole live plagiarism scandal, like picked up some shit from the
so did Melania and English,
and so there's a lot of like issues that have with different candidates. They're shady, but I agree with.
And then there are other things like Pete Buttigieg is nothing to me.
He's nothing.
Everybody's saying he needs to get out of it.
No. I mean, he's a blank slate. But the fact that he's able to step up and be like, hey, guys, I'm not doing anything. And he gets the cover of Newsweek. And it's like, okay, so why aren't we going through and being like, yo, what are you doing?
That's like Brick on Anchorman. Like,
that's really what it is. Like, hey,
I'm not doing
anything. I haven't done anything wrong. You're like, what have you done? And then when you find out, it's like, well, you did kind of do something wrong when you're talking about you're dealing with your police chief. Then it's like,
who was black?
Well, I don't know how to handle the black vote, that kind of thing. So we as a people got to be more discerning. On the voting.
So let's just wrap this part with this. Who you think right now? Who you voting for?
I am still leaning towards Elizabeth Warren
and Horace
Bernie all the way.
And for me, it's Andrew Gillum. So I'm gonna need you to get in the election. So that's my favorite black politician.
And I'm gonna tell you too. Anybody that is willing to take away these loans. I'm with.
I'm not with that shit.
No,
because it don't affect me personally. So I don't care about
like
you
nigga.
How about you niggas? I want all of y'all to come up on me. I want all of y'all to come up on me. And then I'm gonna go to social media, and all y'all gonna be on vacations, buying new cars and shit. Nah, nigga. Yeah, I don't need. Nah, I'm not voting for you, though. Not happening.
I'm gonna tell you right now. You get rid of these loans, you got me.
The
same way people was for Bush when he gave out that $700. Like he's like, I'm gonna give you some.
Now, if they let me go get a PhD for free, on top of like take away y'all loans, then I'm with the shits. But none of that shit.
Bernie's on that wave. Bernie is definitely on that wave.
On that
where
wave.
He's like,
and that's, and so like it's just the best advice is what Devon's saying. Like, remove the persona, see what they're about. And also, I would also recommend for people, explore alternative media sources like your CNNs, your NBCs. Those are all the corporate media, and they're going to facilitate and push people who are not going to disrupt this kind of capitalist system. But taking a page out of Devon's book, just look and see what the policies are,
and then look and see at the lower level too.
There are like these
at the lower, like vote for your sheriff, vote for your judges.
Oh man,
vote for people,
your DA,
your DA, all that
but
stuff.
Aren't there those finders? Like there's these apps that you should be able to find where you'll say
they do comparisons,
and you'll take you'll say all of your different things that you're passionate about, and it'll tell you which candidate is for you.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's some things out there right now for it. So maybe it's something that you should look into right now, and if you find a candidate that's appropriate for you, then donate to their campaign.
Absolutely,
like that is a surefire way to make sure that your candidate can maybe stay in the race a little bit more, and talk a little bit about them on social media. So before we get out of here, two big things. Well, one question and it's encompassing two other questions. The last time we did this woke podcast earlier in the year, I knew who Nipsey Hussle was, but I wasn't necessarily on him like that. I wasn't into his music. I wasn't just like, I was like, okay, Cali guy who like fake Snoop, or whomever else. And pretty cool. Like I heard a song or two that I was like, okay, that's pretty dope. I had heard Blue Laces and I was like, okay, that's cool. Nipsey Hussle died. I find out more things about him. I started listening to to what is it? What's the name of his damn album? Victory Lap. I started listening to Victory Lap for the last, I'm gonna say 2 months. I've been unabridged. Nipsey Hussle has been in rotation. I'm a musical fan of his music. Ocean Views, all this. Like I really like Nipsey Hussle tracks. What is the lasting legacy that you guys have seen from? And I think it's just when you talk about shooting star. He's not a shooting star like Obama, but it was very much one of those things where it's like, oh damn, okay, this guy died, and like, but he had a lot more going on than I thought. Yeah. And I don't know, what are y'all thoughts in kind of that lasting legacy of Nipsey Hussle to the woke black community? And Devaughn, I'll let you start because you're in the hip hop a lot more than we are.
I mean, I would say with him, I think you're going to see, I think you're starting to see a lot more. And I think he's on the beginning of that wave. Maybe not the beginning of that wave, but I think he's the result of a lot of entertainers seeing what has happened in the past and being like, I'm not going to run for my community. I'm going to build up stuff. And that's it. Because we've seen too many entertainers that have built up, I mean, billions worth of equity and then wind up coming right back home with nothing. So it is one of those things, like, I'm like, well, why leave? Like, why leave? Why not build up what I have here? Because nobody else want to be around us but us. So why don't I just make this? I mean, him putting in the STEM Research Center, him buying up the store, like those kind of things, being that business savvy. And also, like, the biggest thing I saw about Nipsey and the reason he popped on my radar, and I was not a fan of his still until Victory Lap. Like, Victory Lap came out, I was like, oh, okay, I can jam this.
Slauson Boy, too, that goes hard.
I still wasn't even a fan of that. Really, the biggest thing I saw was when he sold that CD for $100 a piece. And Jay-Z bought like 100 copies. And so then I was like, and the story of that just alone, where he's like, I see what he's doing. I was like, well, if Jay recognizes you, then I'm going to at least keep you on the radar. But I still really wasn't listening to him. Hearing Victory Lap, I was like, his style is not, I like a more lyrical rap style, but he makes these motivational raps, and then you see he's actually living the motivation. Like, he was kind of writing this.
Were you seeing this when he was still alive?
When I saw, I guess, the business sense of him for selling the CD at $100, because I saw him do it, and I saw Currency was selling a CD.
Wu-Tang sold that CD for like $100,000.
That was not the same.
Yeah,
that was definitely not the same. But I saw him and I saw Currency that were like, because Currency did Pilot Talk 3. And he's like, this is just what I'm going to sell it for. You can buy it. And they were stepping outside of the iTunes system. And people were like, that's dumb. But they were being successful at it. I'm like, you're shooting videos. I'm hearing more about you. You're obviously doing something. And it's really like, I guess when this all comes in, at a certain point, we just got to learn how to support ourselves. Like, that's really it.
So
like,
that's his lasting, is that like his lasting legacy?
Yeah. I think he's a result of somebody looking at systems and being like, you know what? But if I don't learn how to support myself, it's not going to work out. If I don't own this part of my neighborhood and I let somebody else own it, they always going to be able to snatch it from me, which is what they were trying to do. If I don't own my masters as part of this system in the music industry, they are going to snatch it from me. If I don't own this and not only that, if I don't support the people that are coming up around me, those people that are closest to me, and even though some people would be like, oh, well, his neighborhood, somebody from his neighborhood shot him. People showed him love in his area, and those are the people that he respected, and those are the people that he trusted. The police were investigating him. That's not his neighborhood. Like, there's always going to be a system involved that's trying to take you down. He built up a community around him as his protection, and that's what was helping him out, and that's what was helping him build. And more people need to be like that. You don't have to go outside of your community to build up everything. Because it's just, you're building everything on sand. Yeah. Because as soon as they get tired of you, they will snatch it, and then they'll be like, look at him.
Yeah, and I think that's what the lasting legacy. Like, I had heard of Nipsey Hussle like before, like just randomly, but I didn't listen to Victory Lap until Sale, shout out Sale, like talked about it on the group meet one time. listened to the album on iTunes and didn't really like it, but I mean, I just kept it moving. But, you know, in like kind of finding out more, and then especially after his passing, I think Nipsey shows that we don't have to look, as Devaughn pointed out, we don't have to look outward to find value like in ourselves as Black people, in our neighborhoods, where people look at our neighborhoods and our predominantly Black neighborhoods as being deficient. He looked at it as like, no, these are my people. Like there's value here, along with the entrepreneurship and the uplift that he had. But I think that Nipsey's approach can be a model for some people.
Absolutely.
Right? It can be a model to say that, hey, like, well, to know the business. Like, we live in a capitalist society. You need to know how capital works. He clearly knew how capital works. Right? But then understanding about just community, about the people around you. He loved Black people. Right. I heard that he had some ideas though about some doctor like
Dr. Sebi. Yeah, the Dr. Sebi.
And so but then I think about I think about again like just thinking about my privilege and thinking about like I was able to go to Xavier. I was able to do this. I was able to do that. I wonder like what if that nigga had the same opportunities that I had? What the fuck would he be doing? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you know, those kinds of things where I'm like, it's kind of problematic. In general, he was using the resources he read. He had like a list of books that he had, like Eldridge Cleaver. Like he was reading the right things. Like the brother was really giving us, like I said, a model to look in, to not look at Black people as deficits, as hurting, as needing something, but to look at value and to try to build from there.
Yeah, I mean, everything about what both of you guys are saying is true. And I think the biggest thing kind of for me is just in building wealth in your own communities, investing in your own communities. And I don't think I saw that. I just saw him as kind of like a different, I didn't see that. But I think his lasting legacy, your legacy can be bigger than who the man was, right? And that's going to sound crazy. It's because the initial thing that came to my head was if those of y'all who are out there thinking about like the class we took, the Synoptic Gospels in Acts, that was the name of the class we took together at Xavier. It was a religion class, and it helped me. Like that class was the first time I ever walked away from the class like, hold up, wait, Jesus like was a real person who existed? Like whether you believe he's the Son of God or Christ or whatever else, this was a real person that some Roman scribe wrote down. He got executed because of, blasphemy or whatever it is. Like it kind of that same, and I'm not to be blasphemous about this, but on that same level to where it's like you can be a lot bigger of a thing after you die than what you were in your lifetime.
Absolutely.
And I think that, Tupac, Biggie might be the same way, like in that way. And I think that Nipsey Hussle is right up there because he was doing the right things when he was living. And if his legacy, and early indications are that if his legacy leads to more Black people of means or not means, using their platforms to try to build within the community, try to do more things that are making successful, then that's a legacy, that's a life well spent. And so hopefully that we're continuing some of those things that Nipsey was preaching on. And I'm going to end it with this. What are you doing for the culture? What do you think you're doing for the culture? That's a charge to the audience, and it's a charge to the two guys I'm sitting at. What are you doing to improve our situation as a people? Are we just sitting around talking about it on a podcast, or what are you doing for the culture?
I mean, what I'm doing is I'm taking, my life experiences into the academy, to in spaces like I'm getting a PhD, trying to get onto the academic job market, become a professor. And what I want to do is take these ideas of like who I am as a person, as a Black person, like living in this society, and bringing voice to places where, especially Black men, ironically, like have not been represented, but not to be a placeholder, but to take the things that like my research looks at, students who are suspended and students who have juvenile justice contact. All of my kids back when I was teaching, like like my kids, like the students who I had an affinity for, the students who I rode for, the students who I had to advocate for because they were just getting screwed over. I'm trying to represent them and study them to, well, and again, not just to study and just to have this piece of work, but to also get involved in activism and just spreading my message to organizations who use this type of research and to just kind of just spread the news of what's that's going.
I mean, I work with children already, so I mean, it's black children, and then I mean that's my job. But I guess in terms of freelance and like in terms of what we do for the podcast, we're always trying to showcase minority, particularly black businesses, particularly black acts, black people, and it's you kind of be surprised how it's not like people are actively like, I don't want to hear the black stuff. You know, it's like, I didn't know. Like, that's literally it. And it's helped out because, you know, sometimes I'll write an article and then somebody will send me a message like, thank you so much. Like, I've been sending such and such publication so many emails and I never got a response. And I was like, you know, they're going to get a whole bunch of emails. But if I'm one of the few black people here, I might be the only person that picks up on it. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's just like, this gives you the opportunity to get like some press, get more people here, help you build up stuff. And hopefully you're helping other black people come along as well.
Well, I mean, and I can add to that, and I'm like it's funny because I said, "What are y'all doing?" I know we just talking shit, but the talking shit is a lot of what I do. Like sitting on this podcast. But even tomorrow, I'm going to be going out and talking to some educators about the need for more black and more minorities and more women in computer science, and I'm going to be talking to them tomorrow, a group of teachers about that. So I try to get out there and be an advocate for the underserved, for the marginalized groups, and to say, hey, look, this is what's going on out here, and I'll give a voice to the voiceless. Bring certain things to different institutions, different schools, and kids who don't have these opportunities. Because I can speak for me, and I can look around with a lot of the friends that I went to school with and people that I know. A lot of us come from backgrounds where our parents influenced us and told us that you're going to school, you're going to be doing this, you're going to do that. And you see so many kids who don't have that. Yeah, and they don't even know certain opportunities are out there. So I feel like my place in the culture is to get out there and talk to them and talk to different people. And like even my bigger macro thing that I've kind of like pulled myself out of is at one point I was teaching 30 kids, like you just said, like in the movie. I was Jaime Escalante. I was teaching that one class, right? Or even if it ain't 30 kids, it's 100 kids. I teach 100 kids, and this 100 kids or whatever. And then when I left and came to this job, I remember my mother telling me, well, now instead of getting 100 kids, you can impact 50 teachers who can impact 100 kids. Yes, and I'm even more removed from that because like last week I was in Virginia teaching teachers how to go teach other teachers. Yeah. How like even a more macro level, but the conversation is I always make it a point to talk about race and culture and how that's an important discussion to have, because if I can just spark teachers to think and consider, because like I stole this from you, and when I get on my soapbox I always say it, Duff, but I stole this line from you. We don't make t-shirts. Like teachers don't make t-shirts. Devaughn, you in the classroom still right now. You don't make t-shirts. Your job matters. Like some people, like, and the other example we said was make coffee, and that was before Black Coffee was making coffee. So that's not a slug at the homies at Black Coffee. Yeah. You don't make coffee, you don't make t-shirts. Yeah. Those jobs are great, but if you mess it up, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Like educating kids matters. You can quite literally be fucking up the future if you don't do that job right. So hopefully I'm doing my part to make sure that the people who are educating the kids are doing it with the right spirit, in the right way. And I mean, you know, even if they're on the 0 to 50 white racism scale, then maybe we could push their ass closer down to 0, as opposed to these overt people who over there fucking over kids and not caring about the educational experience of kids because they don't feel positive thoughts about those children or the communities that they come from or the communities that they're teaching. So there's so many different levels as far as kind of the things that I'm trying to accomplish there. But it's the overarching theme is just for the community. I just want to make education a better thing, improving the way we educate our kids, one kid at a time. And I think that's my little tagline on LinkedIn. But yeah, that kind of thing. Look, fellas, I appreciate you guys. I told you an hour. I gave y'all an hour and a half. I think the people out there respect that a little bit because they get something to listen to on their way to and from work. So we got to do this again.
Absolutely. This is great. Cathartic. Like I need this.
This is what we used to refer to as guy talk, right?
Yeah, this is guy talk.
But under the guise of Woke Part 2, be on the lookout for Woke Part 3 is going to come. And Devaughn, tell them where to find In My Humble Opinion. Go
to myhumbleo.com. They'll have or myhumbleo.com/links. It's got everything, Google Podcast, or Apple Podcast, everything that we're on, it's there. And follow us on Instagram, myhumbleo.
All right, and don't follow Duff because he doesn't have anything for you to necessarily follow like that. But I'll tag him on the picture for this on Instagram, so you can follow his personal page if you like to.
But if you see a light skinned guy walking around, like the guy that from the Spike Lee movies, that's him.
You talking about
That's him.
No, okay, man. Look, we out, man. I'll see y'all next time.
You know they say if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all.
If you can't say something nice, don't say nothing at all.
Nothing nice to say, but Al don't nice.
I ain't got nothing, I ain't got nothing, I ain't got nothing nice to say. I ain't got nothing nice to say at all. I ain't got nothing, I ain't got nothing, I ain't got nothing nice to say. I ain't got nothing nice to say at all.
So I won't say nothing at all.
I ain't nothing nice. You hear me?